Thanks. Hi, guys. This is a big, loud crowd. You guys hear me okay in the back? All good? Okay, cool. Who's here for the first Hackfest? That's awesome. Thanks, guys, for coming. This is my fourth Hackfest. They keep asking me to come back. I don't know why. Thanks. I try to make it fun every time and do something interesting and new. Hackfest is like my favorite place to try out new talks or new things that I've been working on. Who's seen me present before at Hackfest? Wow. I think that's the largest response I've ever gotten. That's really cool. So thanks. Who's here to see this just because it's me and they have no idea what I'm talking about? Oh, I am sorry to disappoint. So that's cool. Hackfest is one of my favorite places to present new material, like I said, and I wasn't actually intending on speaking here this year. I didn't have anything ready for this. Most of my research I've been doing in the past year at my last company is all under NDA, and I couldn't really talk about it publicly. And then Patrick hit me up and he said, "Hey, I noticed you didn't submit anything for Hackfest this year. What's going on? We kind of needed some English speakers." And I said, "Oh, I told him I didn't really have anything prepared, so I was just gonna skip it this year." And he said, "Well, are you working on something? Anything maybe?" And I said, "Well, I've been playing around with scraping this Venmo public feed." And he goes, "Oh, I was hoping someone would talk about that. Get it in." And I said, "Oh, I don't have it. I don't really have anything ready yet." And he was like, "Sounds good. You've got a couple of months. We'll get you in here." So I said, "Okay," because I can't say no to Patrick, and I love Hackfest. So a little bit about me really quick is up there. I don't have to read you guys. I'm currently a director of field engineering for Casada. We stop bots on the internet. We are the best at stopping bots on the internet. I will say that out loud in person to anyone, and I challenge anyone to prove that wrong. I'm openly always looking for people to try and bypass our automated tool defense systems. We're really cool. If you work for a company that needs to defend against scrapers, botnets, scalpers, anything of that nature, pretty much any kind of automated tool system, be it curl, phantom.js, what have you, we can take care of that for you. So go ahead and hit me up later. I'll have some cards up here. On the left there, you've got my kind of general way that I work my way up through security over the past 12 plus years. Started as a network engineer, made my way all the way through penetration testing. My last position, I was an industrial security researcher, which was really cool and sad and terrifying, and I don't recommend anyone do it. And now this is what I'm doing. You got my links on the right. I'm real popular on Twitter. I yell at the internet there a lot. Feel free to take pictures throughout this engagement. I don't mind. Feel free to post them on Twitter. I really like that. It helps people get the word out. And I post all my code and slide decks and things like that to the Twitter, so that's a great place to keep an eye on me. I'm going to go through a script that I wrote for this whole thing later. That script is going to be on my GitHub, which is down here. How cool is this? I just love this thing. So, all right. This is a very nutrient-dense talk, so I'm going to race through this, so try and bear with me. Feel free to take pictures of any of the slides for information you want later. I'm working with an application here called Venmo. It's a mobile payment app that's extremely popular in the US, and it wasn't until about 4 days ago that I realized it doesn't exist in Canada, and no one here is going to have any idea what the hell I'm talking about. So I threw some slides together to tell you guys how big of a deal this thing is. Bear in mind through this entire thing, this is US only. So about 23 million users, and this active users in 2018. It is the most used mobile payment application by millennials specifically, and we're going to find out why that is in a couple of minutes. It's actively accepted at retailers, both brick and mortar and online, by about 2 million of them. It's a huge, huge, huge mobile payment app. Why do we need another mobile payment app? We've got, PayPal, we've got all of the banking apps, we've got Apple Pay, we've got Google Wallet. How the heck did Venmo expect to get into this market? They did it with social engineering and cartoons. This concept of getting people to pay you money if they owe you money is always an awkward situation. If you something as basic as hey, splitting a pizza, or I'll pick up dinner and you can pay me back later, and then a week goes by and they've never paid you, it's always an awkward conversation to have. Venmo fixed this by having a communication mechanism built into the app that is like super emoji intensive, to the extent that when you're typing within the text boxes in the app itself, it will recommend emoji for you to use, not just based on your own like keyboard emoji recommendations. And so they turned something into, hey man, where's my 20 bucks? Into fun little emoji, and then everybody's happy and cutesy, and then they kick you the 20 bucks and you get paid. And also this, of course, devolved into great ways to pay your drug dealers. And we're gonna talk a lot about that. And so, yeah, they busted their way into the mobile payment market by just being cutesy and fun and making it way less awkward to get money from people. Here's their payment volume as of Q3, $17.5 billion have been transferred through Venmo. 17.5 billion, and increasing by about the same amount quarter after quarter after quarter. We're starting in Q1 2017 down there for those of you who can't read that. It's the number 4 most used P2P payment app. This is particularly interesting to me because we've got Venmo down here, number 4. Banking apps, all banking apps combined, and that's your general banks like Chase and your Bank of America and whatever the heck you have up here. All those combined end up at number 3, but I thought it was really weird that Facebook Messenger is the number 1 most used mobile payment app. I don't get it. Maybe for the same reason that Venmo got popular. You can be super cutesy and send emojis to the Facebook Messenger, but there it is. So yay, everyone likes statistics, right? This is fun. Do you guys want me to do like 60 more slides of financials on Venmo, or do you want me to get to the hookers and blow? I know what you want. So we're talking about the API that exists in here. The API, and I can show you guys, in fact, that's what I'll do. It's easily accessible through a web browser, which is really cool, except that it has a whole lot of limitations in it. Let me see how I can do this way. Yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to show you guys what Venmo looks like too. So this is it for you guys who haven't used Venmo before. Anyone from the US here? Let me just get like it's a real small number. Have you guys anyone used Venmo? All right, cool. So Venmo hit the media in the summer last year when Vice and a few others discovered that there's this public feed over here. See, these are your feeds. You got friends, mine, public. Oh, I disabled my internet and I totally broke this entire talk now. Sorry, guys. Let me see if I fix this for you. Okay. So there's a public feed that goes on, and everyone freaked out because by default, when you sign up for a new account and you make any payments, this public feed, it posts to this public feed. And that was crazy to people. Oh, now I gotta sign in for you. This is time we don't have, right? Ding, ding. Okay, so here's our public feed. Let's check this out. I don't know any of these people. And these are people paying other people for serum, a whole lot of bread, more bread. And so this became very interesting because you see terms like bread come up a lot, and you wonder, well, why are so many people talking about bread? You see food, you see pizza a lot, and I'll show you some stats later when I was able to do some searching. And this is fascinating. You can scroll through this forever and Halloween din. Yeah, this is probably haircut and women. Yeah, so it gets weird. So that's what the public feed looks like, and this has been like this forever since Venmo's inception. That was its whole thing of making a social aspect out of transferring money, giving money, passing money around, fun with your friends. And so they got called out on this public feed and just displaying everything that you're spending money on to the entire world really easily, allowing things like I can see how much you're paying for utility bills, and I won't get into that. But we don't want people to see what we're spending money on. It's one thing to be transferring money to friends, but you got to remember you can pay, like I said, utility bills with this. You can buy things online with this, and a lot of those online retailers and brick and mortar retailers post that information to the public feed. Some of them literally post exactly what you bought. They'll take the text from your receipt, throw it in this public feed, and I know everyone in this room is kind of a privacy advocate, but how many people do we know that don't understand that social media and things like that are publicly accessible by default and what that means? You know, public doesn't mean, oh, just to the general people that I know, but to the entire world, including somebody who may be trying to build a personal framework about me in order to blackmail me for something later, stalk me. If they see, oh, I get coffee at the same place every Tuesday and Thursday on my way somewhere, they can wait for me there for some reason. Things like that. It's super creepy. And it's not like thrown in your face that there's a problem with something being public. It's just like you're aware that there's this public feed. Venmo's stance on it is that's how we operate, and that's one of our big things. We're going to keep doing it unless our users get super uppity about it, and so far they haven't. In the meantime, Venmo has a couple of APIs I was able to discover. The fact that there's two of them was particularly interesting, and they have some very slight annoyances to them. I think I'll just skip right over to it. You can't, like it says here, you can't just wget this. You're going to get locked out. Depending on which API you're using, you get locked out immediately. You get one request and then you're done, which seems bad for an API. And I was trying to figure out why that is, and we're gonna play along and get the play-by-play and eventually figure out why that is. So there's the two APIs I was able to discover appear to be like a version 1 and a version 5. The version 1 appears to be, keep in mind I had no contact with Venmo through any of this, so I had to infer everything based on research and just poking at things a lot and making some educated guesses. Version 1 appears to be an app developer API that they've since discontinued around 2016, but is still open, facing the internet and responding to requests. They may have done this because old apps still exist and they want to be able to allow those customers to still be supported. But it's been a while, and you'd think they would have maybe rolled them all off of there by now. But no, it's still out there. It does do a lot of really intense throttling. However, I noticed if you go into the developer's site, which still exists, and request an API access token, which still exists, that throttling goes way down. If you submit that API request token with every API request, makes total sense. Very normal situation. Getting that API token through the normal web browser interface, I'll show you that in a minute, is annoying. It's a lot of clicking and responding to two-factor requests and refreshing pages. And if you get locked out, you have to wait a long time, and it's just an awful experience. So if you're trying to scrape an ocean of data like I was trying to do, you're still getting locked out even with this API token, and you have this delay of minutes to hours, depending on what you're up to, before you can start again, and it just renders the whole process awful. I found a beta API for the V1, and like the beta dev API still appears to be facing the internet as well, which seems super weird to me. And then I think for this one, the worst part of it is it uses this Snowflake. Anyone's familiar with Twitter's Snowflake IDs, the Snowflake system? I'll talk more about that later. It makes actually trying to get chronological lists of data from the public feeds super annoying. So V1 opposed to V5 here. V5 does not appear to care about API tokens. I'm pretty sure V5 is what the actual Venmo app uses. So they have something in place detecting if you're using the app or not, and if you're not, it'll give you one response, and then you're just absolutely dead. This was interesting. It uses epoch time for pagination, and that's always weird when you come across it. You can see that up here, this is an epoch. It took me a minute to figure that out because it's not a transaction ID, and I was like, well, what are they doing here? And then someone had pointed out, is that epoch time? And I said, you're a nerd. And I think you're right. And sure enough, it is. So for some reason, they're using epoch time in the V5, and it actually turns out, I think that has something to do with the Snowflake pagination I was talking about earlier, but I'm not sure. That's the one cool thing I found out about the V5 here is that I can abuse a certain authorization section of it to get API tokens on the fly. Even though the V5 doesn't use API tokens or care about them, there's a weird delivery mechanism of them inside of it that I think is accidental or unused, and then you can bounce that off of the V1, and I'll get through all this in a second, so don't worry about it. So if you're using the old V1 API, Venmo thinks that's weird. because almost no one is using it. My account is still actually frozen. So don't use your personal account. You're not going to be able to get your money. Or don't put money in that personal account. This is some interesting conversations that they had sent to me. I had only realized recently that they said, hey, reset your password and then email us back, and then we'll talk about unfreezing your account. I've done that, and they have not gotten back to me about the talk about unfreezing your account part yet. I don't have my money. So make sure you're aware of what you're doing. If you want to get a new account created in order to just constantly make new accounts and ping the API that way, just spin up a bunch of IPs, make a ton of new accounts, and then just request until the API locks you out and then call it a day and get new accounts. That's really hard because you have to go through several clicks and it makes you confirm your identity via SMS two-factor. And it verifies that you're using a real phone number, which sucks too if you don't have like a huge list of real phone numbers, or can at least guess at that. So again, it super gets in your way if you're trying to dump an ocean of data and you constantly get blacklisted. So they have a lot of controls in place that were making this very difficult. It's looking like maybe the whole public getting uppity about, oh, people can dump an entire year's worth of data from the public feed and see what I've been doing everywhere is kind of unfounded. I could not find a way to do it. So I was like, okay, I spent like 2 weeks on this and I said, well, this isn't getting anywhere. PayPal, who owns Venmo, has a bug bounty. Hey, let me try to see what goes on there, see if I could find anything. And I just completely gave up on scraping the API at that point. I said, all right, cool, you guys are doing something good, I guess. What else is going wrong? This is the token generation page. This is where you go to get your API token. It's hidden down in like this developer section, which it's weird that it exists because they're not accepting new applications from developers. You're not allowed to create your own apps anymore. There's no reason for this to still exist. There's no reason for it to still issue access tokens to you, but it does. First off, this token lasts about 30 minutes, and then it blacklists itself, and you have to come back here and you have to reapply for a new one. By that point, your login session is timed out, so you have to re-authenticate, do your two-factor, request a new token, get that token, plug it back into your script or whatever you're using to try and dump the API, and then either you're going to get blacklisted again in 30 minutes, or you're going to do something dumb and it's going to blacklist you before that, and then you have to come back here and do all this again. Super annoying, but I'm just looking for bugs now in this page, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. What is this? I'm glad you guys know what that is. What do we call this? When the thing up here looks like the thing down here. No, we call it reflected cross-site scripting. And basically it means anything you stick in that URL bar appears on the page. And so you can do some really fun stuff like this. So I can craft like probably some more obfuscated URL, send that off to like a known Venmo user who I think is trying to use the dev portal at least, and say, hey, here you go, paste this malicious link into your browser, and they do at least escape HTML tags and things like that, so I can't throw a link right in there, but this looks pretty legit, right? Like, oh, for security purposes, okay, that makes sense that I have to do something odd. And like one of the first things we're told, for avoiding email phishing and stuff is like, don't click the links, copy and paste it into a new browser window. So this is kind of like very expected user behavior. This isn't asking someone to do something odd, but PayPal thought that was just completely off the wall. Long story short, this is them turning down my bug bounty for that one, because they said, oh no, that's bizarre that no user would ever fall for that. That's ridiculous. Okay, so there you guys go. You can have that one. PayPal doesn't give a shit, so it's yours now. Aside from that, I was like, all right, well, you pretty much look at all the pages that kind of have interactive input. Let me get my mouse here so I could stop this. So what I'm doing here is I'm just signing up for a new account. I'm using crap data. I'm using a phone number that has a known area code and prefix that I know is going to be valid, and then I'm just trying random last fours until I get one that hasn't already been plugged into the system, and just using Chrome Inspect here to see what comes back. And so here I'm at the part where you have to confirm your identity. So like it doesn't create a new account until you've definitely confirmed that you own the phone number that you're saying here, right? This is all very normal. We see this all the time. Looking at the responses that I get back here, and I have, oh, who's this? Anybody see that? I know that's really tiny up here. I'm going to call this out. So bear in mind here, I haven't confirmed this account yet. And yet, we're looking at an API access token in a response header, so nowhere on the page, but for some reason, this server shoots us back an API access token for an average user just trying to create a new account. And that might end up being used towards the app or something like that. The app, when you log in, probably inherits that and punches that into itself in the back end, and that's the one that doesn't expire. But we've got a problem here because I have shortened the time it takes to start up a new account and get that API access token by an exceptional amount of time because I don't have to go through the rest of this crap. There it is. So yeah, within essentially submitting a single form in a script, I can get API access tokens. We're back in. Let's write a script. So I wrote a script, and I'm going to give this script to you guys so you can have all the fun that I was having, because I haven't had a ton of time to actually gather oceans of data because it actually still takes an immense amount of time. Even with the gargantuan number of servers I spun up to start scraping this using this method, I still was not able to scrape data as fast as it comes into Venmo. So if you want to scrape, and then even going backwards, it was taking me longer than the amount of time I was scraping for, i.e. if I wanted to scrape a month's worth, it would take me about 5 weeks. And that's insane. That's an insane amount of data. So I was able to get about 6 weeks of data from this IP, from this API, and it's about 3 gigs worth. But it's all JSON. It's an immense amount of items. I have to still build out like a Cassandra cluster just to be able to do some good correlation attribution. But anyway, here's the script. I hope you guys can see this. I'll only go through the interesting parts. I'm not going to read you my code line by line because I know you love that at cons. It's just really funny, so I wanted to point some things out here. So your variables up here, I asked for the last four digits of a telephone line. That's where it starts, and then if that one already has an account associated with it, it just increments by 1. Your before IDs and after IDs just have to do with where you want to start within the timeline, and you can figure out where to start and stop based on just punching the initial API right in your browser and just looking for these. And this is it's pretty obvious. I'm not going to read this to you guys, but yeah. So all of this is random username, random password. Doesn't matter. You never have to use it again, so you don't even have to store these because all we're trying to do is create a new account, get the API token, and get to work because you don't need credentials to hit the API. You just need this token, and you're done. So you don't have to store any of this. There's a weird client ID that's required in the post headers. Don't know what it does. Usually it's 10, so I just use 10 all the time. Play around with it. See what you get. I definitely found that 110 and 2899 are all valid, but I didn't seem to get any different responses based on those. But I don't know. That's a fun thing you guys can do. Here's more telephone lines. So yeah, this is all just garbage. This is me submitting the form that you were looking at before that gets right before the account confirmation. So I did notice, this is great. Here's the part of it here where it just starts incrementing the telephone line if it fails to get anything. If you try to use the same phone number twice, even after it was successful the first time, you didn't confirm the account, it still marks that phone number as having an account. So by doing this, we are effectively blacklisting an ocean of potential Venmo users. So far, I haven't found that list gets cleared out ever yet. Because I have to keep coming up with like new ranges of telephone numbers that are valid. So sorry, not sorry. I don't know what to tell you. That's not my fault, but it's kind of my fault. I've probably blocked out a couple thousand people, maybe more, in the Chicago area code area. Yeah, then it just gets a new API token, and so I'm going to point this out here. It's using the V5. Where's my good one? We're using the V5 API to do account creation, which, like I said, I'm pretty sure is the one the official Venmo application uses. But then, because V5 doesn't actually seem to care about that API token for some reason, or I just don't know how to submit it in a way that it expects, because these are undocumented APIs. This is me trying to reverse something over, at nights and weekends when I'm bored. The we feed it to the V1 API, which seems to love it. So that's really weird too, that like tokens from one API working for a really old one. Maybe not weird. I don't know. That's what's going on. I like to add a few HTTP headers in when I do stuff like this, just to try and make it look more legitimate. There's even more I could add in there. I like to drop the cache control down to 0 just to make sure I'm getting fresh data. And the DNT just sometimes dumps a lot of the tracking cookies, which makes it harder for them to determine if you're a bot or not. If you really want to dodge bot detection, and this is in general, not just with the Venmo API, but if you're scripting something and you're pinging web servers and you're trying to avoid Akamai or Distill or whoever discovering that you're using automated tools and you're not an actual human being, one of the best things you can do is Distill hates this one weird trick. You randomize these headers, randomize the order that you submit the HTTP headers in. And then if you want to get really funny, randomize the data that's inside of them, as long as you can validate that the data you're providing is still accepted by the web server. But I found in a ton of cases, and we're talking, companies as big as Akamai, simply randomizing the order in which you submit HTTP headers will eliminate the detection system's ability to think that you're a bot, because it thinks you're something completely new because the headers came in a different order. And that's impossible to do, right? Like, no, how can you randomize the order of HTTP headers? That's bananas. So yeah, pro tip, if you want to bypass if your companies are using bot detection mechanisms in front of your web servers, just try that if you want to prove that they don't work.